In 1967, Bernice Donald was one of 4 black girls enrolled at the previously all-white Olive Branch High School in Mississippi. School segregation had been ruled unconstitutional, but the white students had no intention of accepting blacks as peers. They called the black girls ugly names and refused to associate with them. Some of her teachers were dismissive, and one was downright hostile. At the end of that first year, Bernice's grades were so stellar that she became the first black student admitted to the Honor Society at Olive Branch High. Her experience confirms what decades of research have shown. Both black and Latino students do better academically when they attend integrated schools, and white students' academic performance doesn't suffer when their classmates are black and brown. But what's harder to quantify are the social consequences of the sort that Bernice endured. Proponents of school desegregation in the 1950s and 1960s presumed that close personal contact among children of different ethnic groups would make their families and communities more tolerant and ultimately improve race relations. But this theory ran into unexpected hurdles. As it turns out, simply sitting in the same classroom together isn't enough to remedy time-worn prejudices. The benefits of interracial contact are conditional. As social psychologist Gordon Allport outlined in his 1954 classic, The Nature of Prejudice, contact has a much greater chance of piercing bias when the interactions meet a long list of conditions, including that the contact is between people of equal status, is condoned by authorities, and is personal rather than superficial. Allport found that contact can exacerbate instead of ameliorate conflict, especially if the contact situations involve competition or create anxiety for those who take part. The encounters need to be long and frequent enough that the groups involved are comfortable with one another and feel they have common goals or bonds. That's what helps dissolve the separation created by outgroup distinctions. And that's what ultimately paved the way to acceptance for Bernice. In her senior year of high school, the Honor Society planned a trip to New York City. Because Bernice was an honor student, she was invited along. She was nervous about going. She'd never been away from home before and was anxious to be on a trip with a group of hostile white students. Despite this, Bernice made the trip. She walked around Manhattan with the group, excited to be in the mix. Like the rest of her Southern troupe, she was wired for hospitality. But when the teenagers tried smiling and speaking to strangers, their greetings went unreturned. Bernice told me we'd be walking down the streets of Manhattan, looking at the New Yorkers going, "Hello, hello." They would look at us as if we were Martians. They just kept walking. Suddenly, Bernice and her classmates were all outsiders, demoted collectively in Manhattan to second-class status. That experience was a turning point. She said, it caused us to focus on what we had in common more so than how we were different. Bernice didn't know it then, but she was experiencing the power of context to weaken bias. When we're faced with a common enemy, research has shown our biases can temporarily dissolve by the urge to band together and survive.